moderator is Professor 𝗜𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗏, and they will be discussing in panel 3, Harnessing the Philippines' Blue Economy. And this topic is really close to my heart because I covered for CNN Philippines several different episodes that related to the blue economy. So again, may we call on Professor Edsel John Ibarra.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're now at the final panel for today's inaugural Balangay Forum. I'm Edsel Ibarra, Assistant Professor at the Department of Political Science, University of the Philippines, Diliman. Thank you, Attorney Karen, for that introduction. Before we proceed with the presentations, I would like to provide a brief background for this panel. No? Earlier, we heard about the role of the the role of science and technology in maritime security. This time, we're going to explore the role of science and technology as well, but for the blue economy. No? Filipinos have always been closely linked to the sea, and 2/3 of our population are living in coastal municipalities, and at least 2 million are dependent on coastal resources for their livelihoods. In addition to this, more than $350 million has been contributed to the national economy by ocean-based activities in 2001. No? The total potential annual monetary value of marine ecosystems pertaining to the Philippines, including our continental shelf, has been estimated at $1.5 trillion 2007 prices, according to a study done by Dr. Rodora Asanza, who we are very fortunate to have as one of our speakers today. No? However, the Philippines is facing several challenges in our marine environment, such as illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, marine pollution, and environmental degradation. To navigate these challenges and unlock the full potential of the blue economy, it is essential to explore actionable solutions and best practices that can propel our country toward a sustainable ocean-based economy. Without further ado, to begin our discussion this afternoon, I would like to introduce Dr. Rodora Asanza, who will discuss the valuation and potential of the blue economy. Dr. Rodora Asanza is an academician of the National Academy of Science and Technology, where she served as president from 2019 to 2022, and a professor emeritus of the University of the Philippines Diliman Marine Science Institute. She now leads the Philippine component of the Balangay Forum global project entitled Coast and Ocean Assessment for Transformation and Sustainability, as well as Pagtanaw 2050, Philippine Science, Technology, and Innovation Foresight 2050. She is the Philippine focal point for marine science and technology and the chairperson of the ASEAN Subcommittee on Marine Science and Technology of the Committee on Science, Technology, and Innovation of ASEAN from 2021 to 2023. To date, Professor Asanza has countless scientific publications in books, journals, on the biology and culture of economically important seaweeds, management of harmful algal blooms, blue economy, and marine sustainability. Dr. Asanza has a number of recognition and awards, which include the 2013 UP Alumni Association Centennial Lifetime Distinguished Achievement Award in Environmental Science, and the 2015 Pantas Award for the Most Outstanding Researcher and Scientist, conferred by the Department of Science and Technology, Philippine Council for Agriculture, Aquatic and Natural Resources, and Research. So our speaker is really an accomplished scientist in her field, and let us welcome, please, Professor Emeritus Dr. Rodora Asanza.
Hello. Magandang hapon po. Maraming salamat sa napakagandang introduction. I just came from the Department of Foreign Affairs. They also have a celebration in line with MANAMo. By the way, maligayang MANAMo. This is our last day, and we should be happy. We're celebrating this together. So sabi ko, hindi na ako magpapatagal. I have to go to Camp Aguinaldo. So after my talk, I ran fast to come here. So I was given this topic, valuation and potential of the Philippine blue economy. And I would like, before I proceed, I'd like to congratulate everyone in this inaugural of the Balangay Forum. Another round of applause for a very significant celebration. Okay, let me go to the first slide. Okay, let me define first the meaning of blue economy. So, the United Nations defined blue economy as an economic term linked to the exploitation and conservation of the maritime environment, and sometimes used as synonym for sustainable ocean-based economy. Okay, there is no consensus for the exact definition. So countries, regions, and other associations really make their own definitions. But what is important here is the sustainable utilization and conservation of the marine ecosystems. Okay? Just like, for example, in the Changwon Declaration, wherein we participated, I think, in 2012, there are two important points. May I reiterate? Economic growth and improved livelihoods from the sustainable use of the marine resources or environment, and preserving the health of the marine ecosystems. Okay, countries, regions have their own blue economy strategies. Take, for example, the US Blue Economy Strategic Plan. They have this been published for 2021 to 2025. And then the EU Blue Economy Report of 2021. And then Australian Blue Economy Strategic Plan. And then the UK Admiralty Marine Innovation Programs. Of course, the UN Decade of the Ocean for sustainable science for sustainable development. We have this theme. I remember I participated in coming up with the theme, especially for the Western Pacific. And the theme is the science we need for the ocean we want. Okay, so activities for sustainable utilization and preservation of the marine ecosystems should be science-based. Pag sinabing science-based, hindi lang natural science, pati social sciences. And even culture is considered in the development of the blue economy. Okay, we also, in 2012, the ASEAN came up with a framework for the blue economy, no? And this time, it's unique, okay? It's integrated, holistic, cross-sectoral, cross-stakeholder, and creating value-added and value chain of resources from ocean, seas, and freshwater. Tayo yung the ASEAN considered even the connectivities in the freshwater environment. Now, I remember, I think it's 𝗏𝗏 Alinio, my colleague at the Marine Science Institute, who coined the term H2O, meaning highlands to the oceans. So passing through the different ecosystems, because these different ecosystems, whether land or freshwater, will impact the marine ecosystems. So the framework of the ASEAN Blue Economy, the guiding principles are value creation, inclusivity, and sustainability. So all activities at the ASEAN Blue Economy should follow this guiding principle. And there are strategies, no, which we should be doing also here and participating in the ASEAN Blue Economy. This is Blue Conservation Management. Ginagamit lagi yung blue. Blue Science, Technology, and Innovation, Blue Priority Sector, and we should build up the blue enablers nationally and regionally and participate in global efforts. Develop the blue infrastructure, the institutional setting, build up the cooperation, participate in the capacity building and sustainable financing. Now, as a focal person and a previous chair of the Subcommittee on Marine Science and Technology of the ASEAN, I was glad and fortunate that we were able to come up with the strategic plan for the marine environment in the particular focus of the ASEAN Blue Economy. Okay, so I think this is very obvious. The blue economy would serve as a new engine for growth in the ASEAN because it will be accelerating the conventional marine sectors. When you talk about conventional sectors, these are the fisheries, aquaculture, fish processing, and tourism. But this can also be a catalyst for the emerging sectors, namely renewable energy, biotechnology, marine and freshwater. Sa ASEAN, kasama lagi ang freshwater because they are interconnected. Freshwater-based research and education. Now, binibigyan ng value, no? If you don't put values into resources or environment, the parts of the ecosystem, minsan hindi pinapansin. So when we came up with the evaluation, the first assessment of the values of our marine ecosystem, medyo na-stimulate, no? Yung buong system. President Duterte called for a Blue Economy Summit in 2019. We published it in 2017. Our moderator mentioned it a while ago. Okay, so we used in that paper the so-called total economic valuation. Okay? Kasi yung ating marine ecosystems, hindi lang goods and services in terms of food, tourism, and whatever. Okay, yung food for the fish and other animals and so on. Okay? So, meron tinatawag na use value. Okay? This is for the direct use, as what I'm telling you, the food and the others, the fisheries coming from aquaculture. For indirect use, these are not directly used. Like for example, if you have a marine protected area, some of them are used in some time, in particular time, or a particular space. Nurseries are also considered, can be given values in terms of their indirect use. Now, option value. Now, this is the value we're in. You give value to this because this would give protection to the coastal area. It could aid in mitigating climate change. Okay? So these are option value. Now, there is that so-called non-use value. Okay? Because they are not to be used at present because they will be of use particularly in the future. So this is the bequest value. Para sa anak natin, sa mga anak-anak nila, and so on and so forth. So this is for structural and protection purposes. Lalo na yung tinatawag na existence value. Yung coral reef na yan, yung mga ano na yan, dapat mag-exist sila, not only for today, but for the rest of the lives of the Filipinos and humanity. Okay? So, this is called existence value. And this is the ideal valuation of resources or the environment, the ecosystem. Sinama lahat, okay? Lahat-lahat. Hindi yung dapat gamitin, kundi hindi dapat gamitin muna. Or hindi talaga dapat gamitin. Okay? So the concept of total economic value, which we use in that particular paper, as I mentioned, these are examples. Direct value for food, timber, fodder, medicine. Indirect value for carbon sequestration. Ine-estimate yung carbon sequestration, kadalasan ng carbon sequestration, lagi nakukuha na carbon ng seagrass, ng mangrove, pero hindi nila kinakasama pa nga yung phytoplankton na napakarami sa dagat. No? Okay. Kaya yung mangroves natin, pati solid materials, pinifilter ng mangrove of the above mentioned. Existence value for supporting and regulating, as I have mentioned, bequest value, preservation, as much as possible, wag nating sisirain, pangalagaan, no? For future generation. Ngayon, meron tinatawag na cultural values, no? Hindi mo, mahirap talaga bigyan ng mga ano yan, ng mga values. And actually, these cultural values are incorporated in the use and non-use values. Okay? Because they are used for tourism. They are used for recreation. And aesthetic, tignan mo lang yung karagatan, yung alon, and everything. Mahirap bigyan ng halaga, but they should be given values if you can just imagine how they are given values. So I think maybe the earlier speakers have mentioned this. We have so many kilometers of coral reefs, seagrass, seabeds, and several hectares of mangroves na nasisira na, lahat yan. Endowed with many beaches and coastlines of value to tourism and development. I think I mentioned a while ago these things below. Okay, this is the paper that was mentioned. I'd like to introduce my co-workers. Porfirio Alino is an ecosystem expert. Actually, he has gone all through almost all the marine protected areas in the country, 1,000 plus of them. And he was in charge of giving awards for these MPAs. Cabral is connected with the U.S. University. He's in fisheries and coastal and marine management, and also connected with some agencies in Australia. Vino Meñez is expert in mariculture. Dr. Pernia was the secretary of NEDA. That time he helped us translate into peso value during that time, 2017, everything that we have considered. And then, of course, Ronald Mendoza is the Dean of Governance of the Ateneo during that time. And Siriban was the assistant of Mendoza. Okay, so this is the paper published by Policy Studies. Okay. Ay, balik natin. Babalik. Okay. So yun binabanggit. This was the estimate during that time. Okay? But you can estimate actually the productivity every year or every so years. Kasi pwedeng bumaba yan, tumaas yan. Ito yung status niya, pati bequest, pati lahat, option value, and everything. Kaya nagulat sila, ang laki. Okay? It's second to Indonesia. I have seen the estimates of Indonesia. Hindi pa sila naka-estimate ng buo. Island per island pa lang ang ine-estimate nila. Because we have a lot of data from the marine protected areas and the number of publications coming from several marine scientists in the Philippines. Now, let me mention, remember that there were, I think I lost the slide, dapat nauna yon. In my keynote talk in 2019 for the Blue Economy, I mentioned the valuation of ecosystem services. No? And I'm so happy that by 2022, because whole of government, conference and workshop for 3 days. So, Philippine Statistics Agency and all the other agencies were there. This 𝗕𝗃𝗃𝗃 bill of 2022, I think it's already an act. Yeah, it's law already. Institutionalize a Philippine ecosystem and natural accounting system to reflect the environmental inputs and outputs. Okay. And this would involve several organizations, agencies, as mentioned here. But the Philippine Statistics Authority is the one responsible. Ngayon, pag hindi nagbigay ng input yan dyan, I don't think they can come up with a very good valuation. Okay? So, yung IRR niyan should consider how they will monitor and how they will be doing the mechanism. It's a complex system, I think so. Maybe next to the Blue Economy bill, the 𝗕𝗃𝗃𝗃 bill would be quite complex. So when we talked to them, they said that they are able to give valuation already to the mangroves of the Philippines. No? But they should do this regularly. So I have here a summary of what I think is the ideal valuation of marine resources. The valuation of the resources should consider their intrinsic, so the aesthetic, cultural, and other intrinsic values, the preservation, and so on. The total valuation that I have shown you a while ago. Not only the commercial values, okay? And the environmental and other risks in the area should be considered in the valuation. They can be considered as inputs, di ba? Di ba? Kasi they have to take care of this risk. Valuation studies may also help in the estimate of the carrying capacity. Yan ang kagandahan yan. Of the areas to be developed and put a limit to the pressure, especially human pressure, that can be exerted to make the resource more profitable and sustainable. If you can remember Boracay Island, when it was rehabilitated so many years ago, not so long ago, the Marine Science Institute was requested to estimate the carrying capacity of Boracay Island. Ibig sabihin, hanggang gaano karaming tao ang dapat tumira doon kasi they put pressure in almost all the resources, especially the coast and the marine ecosystems. And they also have to regulate the number of people that go in and out as tourists. Kaya sila nagbibilang. And I hope they are doing that. And I hope they are doing this for all the islands in the Philippines, especially those with very risky ecosystems. As a lady from Catanduanes talked to me a while ago, maybe this can be done in Catanduanes, considering climate change, etc., and try to see the carrying capacity of Catanduanes as an island, especially it's facing the Pacific Ocean and becomes a route for heavy storms, okay? The more practical is when blue investment areas would consider programmatic environmental impact studies to mitigate or prevent long-term risks. So there are still many things to do. The next, okay. Sanay ako ng next slide, please. Okay, now let's talk about marine protected areas. Do you still have time? Yeah, okay. So, well, National Scientist 𝗂𝗂𝗃𝗏, I was very lucky. I worked with him for a long time at the UPMSI and at the National Academy of Science and Technology. And he was a pioneer of MPAs, not only in the Philippines, but I think even in the ASEAN. MPAs are the increased abundance of animals within the MPA and increased ecosystem resilience to overfishing and climate impacts. Kaya yung marine protected areas, they are very, very important, especially for an archipelagic country. Para tayong small island ecosystems, no? Small islands ecosystem, vulnerable to many man-made and natural hazards. Well, our country is nestled within the center of marine biodiversity. It is our obligation not only to ourselves, but also to the rest of humanity to take care of, malapit na, to take care of the marine resources in the area. Now, we only have 1,557 of the MPAs, no? According to 𝗂𝗏𝗃𝗏, this should be at least tripled because of the size of our marine waters. Okay, these are the blue economy industries. I will be talking more of this. And let me mention that based on the MANAMo presentation that we had in 2020, actually during that year and the year before that, marine tourism, biodiversity tourism gave the most, the biggest, I have to go back to the previous slide, but it's not going. Okay, the biggest contribution to the blue economy that time, okay? Coming in second that time was fisheries and aquaculture. If you consider, for example, the Palawan side alone in the West Philippine Sea, the annual production is about 129,615.4 metric tons annually. Most of the seafood that we have are coming from the Palawan side of the West Philippine Sea. Ayun na, una siya. So here, the biggest contribution are from marine tourism, fisheries and aquaculture, and from manufacturing and ports and shipping. So the ecological base of fisheries and aquaculture, we need to do a lot of taking care and preservation and sustainable development of our ecosystem, because they are the basis for fisheries and aquaculture and the other blue economy industries. So let me just show you what is happening in our coast. Okay? In the coast, you have a low risk zone. Okay? You can have your evacuation area and some other critical facilities, no? For the good of the people and the good of the coastal resources. Then you have a medium risk zone and a high risk zone. These are areas for tsunami inundation and storm surge inundation areas. And so therefore, kung talagang magkakaroon tayo ng marine spatial planning, maraming mga ano dyan, dapat alisin. And that was how it was done in Boracay. Pati si Pacquiao, inalis yung bahay niya dahil nandun yata sa foreshore na halos, no? Or even occupying in the buffers. So not only the ones that we find in the coastal zone are for coastal and marine manufacturing. They are not for blue industry development. So ports and shipping and marine transport, there is already a maritime law. You can consider archipelagic sea lanes as well as international sea lanes. I don't want to talk more about this because my time is up. Let's talk about this later. And then the shipbuilding industries, hopefully we can have this harnessed and earn more from what we can develop. Ang malakas na port ay Manila and Cebu, and we have a lot of areas to develop local and international shipbuilding facilities. Okay? You can harness ocean energy, like for example, wave energy and even tidal energy later on. So in terms of energy, the Department of Energy said that there are already 1,000 potential sites at the ASEAN region, but I guess in the Philippines, they have less than 500 or so sites that are capable of producing 200 megawatts each. So pinag-aaralan pa to, no? How and strategic plans are being developed. So these are the potential sites in Ilocos, Pangasinan, Zambales, Bataan, Antique, Basilan, and so on. And most of these are facing many of them are facing the eastern board or the Pacific Ocean. Okay? At the Subcommittee on Marine Science and Technology, we are talking about science, technology, and innovation to help the blue economy. And we are considering ocean energy, smart systems, intelligent real-time decision support, and control design systems. So for marine genetic resources, we have a lot of them. Okay? Yung mga biological materials that we can get from the sea, not only from the benthic, but also the floating one, but also the macroorganisms, but also the microorganisms. So here is the coral triangle, and you can see that we are at the center of this coral triangle where we have the highest marine biodiversity. So we have very rich marine genetic resources, and mabagal pa ang Pilipinas at ang ASEAN in terms of harnessing this. But we can cooperate with developed countries, but taking care of our rights to these genetic resources in order to get the most from this. So the marine protected areas in the Coral Triangle, we are trying to have the so-called heritage sites, invoking the BBNJ, Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction. So we can start this at the ASEAN to come up with collaboration in maintaining the conservation as well as sustainable management of marine resources beyond the national jurisdiction. And we can call this as heritage sites. These are human heritage sites. Okay, technology and environmental services, harnessing the energy. Sabi nga ni dating president ng Mapua, if only we can get the energy from tsunamis. If we can, why not? Yung internet nga, malay natin magagawa natin, nagawa ng tao. Okay, but also to have batteries for this. Okay, the Philippine Blue Economy Bill, I think I don't need the ways forward. I will wrap up. So better interagency cooperation, long-term national RR&D cooperation in terms of monitoring and management, cross-border regional cooperation, and I think I always mention the need for a roadmap for national security so that we can really take care of our blue economy with the help of our national security people. And with that, I thank you for your attention. Medyo humaba pala, no?
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, Dr. Asanza, for giving us a primer on the blue economy, which is simply the sustainable ocean-based economy. Since we're interested in this panel in investigating how to harness our blue economic potential, Dr. Asanza gave us a few recommendations. The first of these is to change our mindsets. Economic value, not just as what contributes to our GDP at the moment, but also what it contributes to our overall well-being at the moment and for future generations. To give you the figure that Dr. Asanza was trying to mention, it was again 1.5 trillion US dollars at 2007 prices. So it's probably around 2 trillion US dollars today, which is roughly 50 times our national budget. She also said that our exploitation and conservation of the marine economy should be science-based. And the first step of this is to evaluate, give monetary value to our economic resources at sea. There's also a recommendation, a suggestion rather, to move beyond the traditional sectors of fisheries and coastal tourism and shipbuilding. So rather than play catch up with our regional neighbors, perhaps we should invest in emerging industries such as renewable energy, wave energy and tidal energy included, and marine biotechnology, which includes harnessing marine genetic resources. Dr. Asanza gave so much more recommendations. I hope you were able to note them down. I was able to note them down, but in the interest of time, let us go to our next speaker. Our next speaker will be delving on the significance of the development of coastal areas. And she is Assistant Secretary Agnes Tolentino. Assistant Secretary Tolentino was recently appointed by the President as Assistant Secretary of the Regional Development Group at the National Economic and Development Authority. She holds a Master of Science in Urban Survey and Human Settlements Analysis from the International Institute for Aerospace Survey and Earth Sciences in the Netherlands, as well as a Bachelor of Laws from Aquinas University of Legazpi and a Bachelor of Science in Human Ecology from the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. In January 2018, Assistant Secretary Tolentino was granted rank 3 as a Careers Executive Service Official by the President. Her dedicated service to the government was recognized in 2013 when she received the Distinguished Alumna for Government Service Award from the UP Los Baños College of Human Ecology. A round of applause, please, for Assistant Secretary Tolentino.
Pleasant afternoon to everyone. Before I proceed my presentation, I thank the organizers for inviting the National Economic and Development Authority to this forum for us to share our undertakings relative to maritime interest. Well, to start off, next slide, please. I just would like to give a brief introduction of the National Economic and Development Authority and what is our mandate as an agency, just to set the premise for my presentation. So as you see on the screen, NEDA is the country's premier socioeconomic planning body, regarded as the authority in macroeconomic forecasting and policy analysis and research. So we also provide advice to policymakers in both Congress and the executive branch. Our key responsibilities include formulation of policies, plans, and programs to efficiently set the broad parameters for national and subnational development. We also undertake short-term policy reviews to provide critical analysis of development issues and policy alternatives to decision-making. So with this brief background on what NEDA is, we'll actually be focusing on the policies, plans, and programs relevant to coastal areas development. Next slide, please. So I will be proceeding based on this outline. First will be a brief overview of the coastal and marine sector and its potential contribution to economic development, though I'd like to thank Dr. 𝗂𝗂𝗴𝘂 because he was able to do that already, so that makes my work a lot easier. After which will be followed by the Philippine Development Plan for 2023 to 2028, focusing on the strategic frameworks for both Chapter 5 and Chapter 15 of the plan, where blue economy efforts and strategies are particularly relevant. After which, I will also discuss how the blue economy will contribute to other related sectoral plans and roadmaps, particularly the Philippine Action Plan for Sustainable Consumption and Production, Roadmap to Institutionalize Natural Capital Accounting in the Philippines, and the National Innovation Agenda and Strategy document. I will also present some of the programs, activities, and projects in the Public Investment Program under the Innovation Grants for Blue Economy and Water, and cap this off with some proposed legislative measures relevant to blue economy that promote stewardship and sustainable development of coastal marine ecosystems and resources. Next slide, please. This was extensively discussed by Dr. 𝗂𝗂𝗴𝘂, so thank you for that, Mom. So I will be skipping this slide. So let's proceed to the next slide, please. Go ahead. So this slide actually shows us the prospects of the blue economy. So as an archipelago, the Philippines being based wealth, it spans roughly 70% of its internationally and legitimately defined aggregate geographic area compared with its land-based. Sorry, I have to change my microphone. Like this. So there's about 55% of our municipalities and more than 48% of cities that are situated along the coast, while 81% of our provinces also have coastal domains. This implies significant potential for economic opportunities. So the prospects and potentials of blue economy are shown on the screen and covers the following. First, on fisheries. The country has a large fishing industry, and the government can support sustainable management of fish stocks to ensure their long-term viability. The Philippines is the 11th largest seafood producer in the world, with annual production of more than 4 million tons. The next prospect is on tourism, where a diverse range of marine and coastal ecosystems can be developed for ecotourism, providing new opportunities for job creation and economic growth. The Philippines has been hailed the world's leading dive destination and the world's leading beach destination for 2022. For prospects on shipping, the Philippines is well positioned to take advantage of its strategic location in the Pacific and can develop its ports and shipping industries to become a hub for regional trade. On regional energy, there's abundant sources of renewable energy, including wind and wave power, which can be harnessed to support the country's energy needs while reducing its dependence on fossil fuels. I think it was also presented to us by the Department of Energy this morning. On the prospect on biodiversity conservation, the country sits at the heart of the Coral Triangle, which is the global center of marine biodiversity, with nearly 60% of the world's known fishes, as well as over 300 species of corals. Thus, we continue to prioritize the conservation and sustainable fishing practices. On interdisciplinary collaboration as one of the prospects, blue economy requires an interdisciplinary approach, and the Philippines can bring together government, the private sector, and civil society stakeholders to work towards a sustainable future for its ocean resources. And lastly, on innovation prospect, the promotion of sustainable ocean-based economic activities can be advanced by supporting innovation, such as climate and disaster-resilient technologies that will improve the resiliency of the fisheries sector, and other innovation that will sustainably harness the economic potential from our coastal and marine resources. Next slide, please. Next, please. On the screen is a measure of the economic contribution of our coastal and marine sector developed by the Philippine Statistics Authority, which is an attached agency to NEDA. The PSA describes ocean economy as referring to activities such as the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services related to or conducted in, near, or found in the seas. Ocean economy accounts include ocean fishing, such as fishing on open seas and sea-based aquaculture. For industries, this include offshore and coastal mining and quarrying, coastal construction, manufacture of ocean-based products, ocean-based power generation, transmission, and distribution. For the services, there are sea-based transportation and storage, marine information services, marine insurance, marine renting and business activities, maritime safety, surveillance and resource management, maritime education, coastal accommodation and food and beverage services, and coastal recreation. Okay, next slide, please. This slide is an overview of the contribution of the agriculture, forestry, and fishery, or we call it as the AFF sector to the economy. The sector saw its lowest contribution to the national economy last year. That's over a 5-year period. So the AFF sector has been valued at 1.78 trillion pesos. It has a sluggish growth of 0.5%, and that was since 2021, and only contributes 8.94% to the gross domestic product. This is against the 61.4% share of the services sector and 29.7% share of the industry sector. And that's according to the statistics of the PSA. Now, let me focus on ocean economy, which is basically the sum of the gross value added of ocean-based industries in the economic sector. So that's agriculture, forestry and fishing, the industry, and also the services, as I actually mentioned earlier. So the green line in the left figure, you see it on the screen, actually shows a big dip, and that's the ocean-based services, such as the coastal recreation, accommodation, and food and beverage services, marine renting and business activities, sea-based transportation and storage. And this drastically declined during the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2021, while all 3 major ocean-based industries in the AFF industry and services sectors post positive growth, there are still behind pre-pandemic rates, except of course for industry, as shown there in the orange line. And this implies strong economic and trade performance, primarily from manufacture of ocean-based products, such as processed fish, we have seaweed, sea minerals or sand, and parts of ship vessels, with some contributions from offshore and coastal mining and quarrying, coastal construction, and ocean-based power generation. The figure on the right actually shows a comparison of these are the ocean-based industries and their growth trends. We see that ocean fishing has steadily increased, followed by manufacture of ocean-based products and sea-based transportation and storage. There is seemingly a stagnant growth for the second row. These are the marine education, maritime safety, surveillance, marine insurance, marine renting, and business activities. And all the four values are below the 20 million peso mark. Next slide, please. Okay, talking about employment, for the ocean fishing, this actually employed the biggest since in 2022 at about 1.13 million persons. And this is followed by the sea-based transportation and storage. And this pertains to ocean transport, ocean-based shipping, port operations, among others. Then we also have the coastal services sector, which is through accommodation, food and beverage activities, as the third highest contributor of ocean-based employment. The same findings are reflected in terms of percentage share, where the share of the agriculture, forestry, and fishery has been declining over time, while the services sector continues to expand over the years. So if you look at the growth rates, it is interesting to note that while the AFF, or the blue line, as you see on the screen, has the largest employment base, it has recently contracted, while the other two sectors, the industry and services sectors, continue its growth and even surpass their pre-pandemic growth rates. As of last year, the Philippine Statistics Authority recorded a total of 2.2 million persons employed in ocean-based industries. It also saw a 10.9% growth from 2021, which signals the entry of population in the ocean economy. Okay. Next slide, please. So it's also good to look at the valuation of marine ecosystem services. Again, it was presented also by Dr. Asanza. So the study that was actually mentioned by Dr. Asanza was in 2017 that computed the net annual benefits derived from marine ecosystem services. So they estimated that these ecosystems bring in around 6.35 billion pesos of benefits per year, majority of which is attributed to the functions of coral reefs, followed by continental shelf, mangroves, and seagrass, respectively. The natural capital accounting, particularly the ecosystem accounting, will help facilitate the updating of these numbers in the future and provide a more accurate and more holistic representation of the value of our blue economy. Okay. Next slide, please. So what is actually the role of blue economy in international commitments and national plans? So how does it figure in? And how do we operationalize those prospects, as I mentioned earlier? So there are various commitments and plans that will bring to fruition what we intend to achieve for the blue economy. First is the Sustainable Development Goal, specifically the SDG 14 on life below water. So this target aims to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, sea, and marine resources for sustainable development. So as mentioned earlier by Dr. Malayang, you can refer to this as the inner space. Second, aligned with our SDGs is our Philippine Development Plan for 2023 to 2028, with strategies focusing on blue economy. So I will be highlighting some of the strategies later on, and as I present chapters 5 and 15 of the Philippine Development Plan. Third is the National Innovation Agenda and Strategy document, also covering the period 2023 to 2032, which serves as a roadmap in creating a dynamic innovation ecosystem toward a smart and innovative Philippines. The National Innovation Agenda Strategy document, or we call it NIASD for short, pursues innovations that will sustainably harness coastal, marine, and inland water resources to support economic growth and generate sustainable livelihoods and jobs while preserving our aquatic ecosystems. Lastly, we also have the Department of Science and Technology's Pagtanaw 2050. So this document was one of the earliest to mention blue economy. It was identified as one of the key operational areas in the country's science, technology, and innovation agenda. Okay, next, please. This slide actually shows you the Philippine Development Plan overall framework. It identifies the various development and sectoral issues that the country faces and the proposed strategies, programs, policies, and legislative measures to address the challenges and achieve the plan's targets. So if you note on the screen, there are 3 clusters or 3 sections in the Philippine Development Plan. First, the one that you see in red is on enhancing individuals and families' capabilities to enjoy a prosperous life through human capital development, social services, food security, and social protection. Second, those presented in green is on transforming the production sectors through modernization, optimizing inter-industry linkages, research and development, technology, innovation, trade, and investments, and generating more quality jobs and competitive products. And lastly, at the bottom, with those in blue, is on creating an enabling environment by establishing favorable business climate, upgrading infrastructure, maintaining political stability, and ensuring good governance and disaster resilience, while pursuing inclusive and resilient economic growth. The priority strategies on coastal development and management are embedded in various chapters of the Philippine Development Plan, particularly under Chapter 5 on modernized agriculture and agribusiness, particularly by harmonizing the efforts of relevant agencies such as the Department of Agriculture, Trade and Industry, Environment and Natural Resources, and by the Science and Technology. And there's a need to allocate the needed resources to harness the full potential of our blue economy resources. And the Chapter 15 of the Philippine Development Plan is on accelerate climate action and strengthen disaster resilience, which aims to pursue enabling policies to promote and expand natural resource-based industries and enterprises, including the blue economy enterprises. So there are also other chapters in the plan that touches on blue economy, such as the chapter on advanced research and development, technology and innovation, and also the chapter 12 on expand and upgrade infrastructure, which is on improving nautical highways through the construction and expansion of seaports and shipping vessels to support the economic sectors. Next slide, please. Let me touch on the related strategies on the blue economy as mentioned earlier in Chapter 5. So the strategic priorities would include, first would be on full implementation of fisheries management areas plans and the establishment of reference points. And also the promotion of viable livelihood options for coastal communities, the establishment of electronic catch documentation and traceability for sustainable fisheries, the pursuit of greater investments in hatcheries, mariculture parks, and feed mills, addressing the lack of modern ship and port facilities and other barriers to efficient inter-island transport and shipping. The updated Maritime Industry Development Plan underscores the modernization, promotion, and expansion of the shipbuilding and ship repair industry. Another strategy is to adopt measures to secure the access of local fisher folk to the country's fishing ground. Still some on the strategies under Chapter 15. This would include the enabling policies and programs that would have to be put in place to provide more livelihood and economic opportunities. And there's also the strategy to increase investments on sustainable management of natural resources, such as on coastal protection and rehabilitation. Another strategy is to expand biodiversity-friendly enterprises, such as ecotourism and marine-based industries and enterprises. Another strategy is to develop and implement green jobs assessment and certification system and guidelines to ensure just transition of workers as we shift towards low-carbon economy. And last strategy is to ensure private sector's compliance with social environmental standards to fulfill responsibilities such as aligning the targets and investments to support resiliency of our coastal and marine ecosystem. Now, talking about the next slide, please. We have the National Innovation Agenda Strategy document. The Innovation Act provided for the creation of the National Innovation Council. This is actually chaired by the President. And they came up with the National Innovation Agenda and Strategy document to improve the country's innovation governance to facilitate the innovation development for the country. So among the priority areas is the blue economy and water, which leverage innovations that sustainably harness coastal, marine, and inland water resources to support economic growth. And we also have the roadmap on the next slide. Yes, the roadmap to institutionalize natural capital accounting in the Philippines. So hopefully this roadmap will provide strategic guidance on the national implementation of the natural capital accounting. Okay, next slide, please. We also have the Philippine Action Plan for Sustainable Consumption and Production, which is a framework to influence and steer sustainable behavior and practices across sectors and levels of government through programmatic policy reforms and set of actions over the short, medium, and long term. Okay, on the next slide, let me just show you some of the programs and activities in the public investment program. I will not read them anymore, but just to show you that and projects. Okay, and also under the innovation grants, we also have this list of projects that covers blue economy and water. So there are various LGUs and agencies that will be implementing them. Okay. Next slide. Now, there are several bills that have been filed in both houses of Congress that is geared towards developing the blue economy. So you see them on the screen that there are several of these bills. What are the salient features? We have the reconstitution of the National Coast Watch Council. We have the formulation of the policy framework on blue economy, the environmental economic planning, the blue finance under the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas that will be tasked to mandate banks and quasi-banks to adopt the United Nations Environment Program Sustainable Blue Economy Finance Principles. And lastly, the mainstreaming of the national capital accounting and the integrated coastal management. Okay. So with this, the next slide, we hope to, next slide please. We hope to enjoy everyone's support in the development of blue economy, and moving forward, these are the proposed actions as shown on the screen. First, we have to raise public awareness on the importance of coastal and marine ecosystems through targeted information, education, and communication activities. Hope there would be more Balangay Forum that will be undertaken. Second is to strengthen alignment of the proposed policy framework on blue economy with the government's development thrust and priorities through the crafting and implementation of a comprehensive development plan that will synchronize the development of both the comprehensive land use plans and the integrated coastal management. Third is to institutionalize coastal and marine spatial planning as a means to improve the management of coastal and marine ecosystems and avoid resource use conflicts. Fourth is to provide specific measures to promote the development of sustainable industries that generate more employment opportunities and improve the income of coastal communities while ensuring environmental protection and conservation. And last on the list is to support the passage of priority legislative measures which seek to harmonize efforts of the government agencies with relevant mandates through the formulation of a policy framework for the blue economy. So this may also include the complementary policies such as the natural capital accounting and the integrated coastal management that are also currently lodged in Congress. So this concludes my presentation. Again, thank you for your attention and good day, everyone.
Thank you very much, Assistant Secretary Tolentino. Assistant Secretary Tolentino gave us a mixed picture of our blue economy right now. So our blue economy does not seem to be a huge part of our economic output yet. No? She said that some ocean-based industries are increasing, but others, but the pace is slow, and that others are actually diminishing in growth, and that others are stagnating. But there's a 10% growth in ocean-based employment, which means that the pie is getting slowly bigger, but the pie eaters, so to speak, are increasing in number much more rapidly, which means that there's a smaller share of the pie for everyone in the ocean-based sector. That said, that's the bad news. The good news is that the blue economy is implied in several of our strategies. It seems that our country has so many strategies on the blue economy right now, most notably in the Philippine Development Plan, which is our midterm economic development plan. And there seems to be more to come, no, with the pending legislation that were mentioned earlier. No? Perhaps we're most excited here with the passage of the Philippine Blue Economy Bill that Dr. Asanza also mentioned earlier. So thank you, Assistant Secretary Tolentino, for that. Our last speaker this afternoon is Mr. 𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗏, who will be delving into the topic of protecting and developing the role of fisher folk in harnessing the blue economy. Mr. 𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗏 is a fisheries development worker. He has been involved with various fisheries programs and projects implemented in the Philippines and across the Southeast Asian region in collaboration with regional organizations, academe, government, and international non-government organizations. Currently, he is a sustainable fisheries, counter-IUU fishing, and maritime security specialist at USAID, Sustainable Fish Asia Technical Support Activity, which is implemented in the Indo-Pacific region. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause to Mr. 𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗏.
Good afternoon, each and everyone. Thank you for the organizers for inviting the USAID Sustainable Fish Asia Technical Support to share our initiatives. Sorry for my voice, I have just recovered from an illness. Yeah. So this afternoon, I will deliver about protecting and developing the role of fisher folk in harnessing the blue economy. Next slide. So here's the content of my presentation. We'll have an overview of the small-scale fisheries sector. We'll have share with you the key initiatives of USAID Sustainable Fish Asia and what are the cross-cutting activities that we have conducted. So just to give you some figures, how significant the small-scale fishers in the region, in the Philippines. Globally, the 40% of the global catch are from small-scale fisheries now. And in the Philippines, there are over 2.5 million of the fisher folks are into small-scale fisheries. No? And then these small-scale fishers have a minimal income of 5,000 to 10,000 monthly. And despite the contribution of this small-scale fisheries sector, the poverty incidence in 2001 is so high, like 30.6. No? So the USAID Sustainable Fish Asia Technical Support Activity. So the USAID Sustainable Fish Asia Technical Support Activity is a project funded by USAID Regional Development Mission for Asia. So it is comprised of multiple individual activities, and its overall goal is to improve the management of marine biodiversity and fisheries resources in the Indo-Pacific region through reducing the IUU. And it is implemented from 2021 to 2025, and it covers 10 Asian states plus the PNG, Papua New Guinea, the Solomon Island, and Timor-Leste. So here I'm just showing with you that the USA Sustainable Fish Asia technical support is composed of regional technical expert team, which are spread across the Southeast Asian. So we have members from Indonesia, we have members from Malaysia, and from Vietnam, and also from Bangkok. So we call it Sustainable Fish Asia Technical Support Activity, or USAID 𝗬𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂. So USAID 𝗬𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂 is 5 strategic approaches. No? So the first one is on adoption and implementation of regional sustainable fisheries policies, standards, and regulatory frameworks. But while I'm talking this afternoon about a small-scale fisheries sector, so this will be covered under Strategic Approach 4, which says improve social inclusion with regional fisheries management, including small-scale fishers, women, and youth empowerment. So I will share with you this afternoon the key initiatives of USAID 𝗬𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂 under SA4. So one of the key initiatives under the SA4 is the conduct of research study on understanding the role of foreign state actors with underrepresented and marginalized fishing communities in Western Philippines. No? So its objective is to learn how small-scale fishers interact with maritime domain, and also what we are eager to find out what are their needs and how can we able to tap their participation in fisheries management. So at the same time, we also investigate the level of statelessness in these said sites. No, so some of these findings include low levels of statelessness due to national push to register people in the Philippine identification system in 2021. You have recalled there's a massive you have national ID system implementation in 2021. And then we have also find out that there was no interactions of these small-scale fishers with criminal networks, and while at the same time, these small-scale fishers lack familiarity of fishing laws and regulations. No, so one of the key recommendations of that study is to secure the social welfare of these small-scale fishers by helping them accessing education, and at the same time providing them alternative livelihoods, and also building the capacities to participate in sustainable fishing practices by raising their awareness. Another initiative, the USAID 𝗬𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂 project, is the formulation of Fisher's Handbook for reporting IUU fishing, which is now being field tested in the Philippines with fisher folks in Northern Luzon, and through the collaboration with the IMPL project. No? So IMPL project is an NGO also operating in that provinces. So the USAID 𝗬𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂 through the Fisher's Handbook formulated the 2 important forms, which include the IUU form reporting for the foreign malign aggressive behavior, and at the same time IUU fishing. No, so we have consulted the fishers from Northern Luzon on how this handbook, what are the experiences in the handbook, and at the same time how can we further modify or how can we further improve the handbook for them to utilize it better. So also the USAID 𝗬𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂 were able to create the Southeast Asia Small-Scale Fishers Hub. No? So last year in October 2023, we have a regional planning workshop in Bangkok, wherein we gathered the NGOs whose advocacies are into small-scale fishers, and we were able to create a small-scale fishers hub in the region in Southeast Asia. So the overall objective of the activity is for the small-scale fishers to amplify, amplify their voices in the region, no? To socialize these NGOs and small-scale fisher associations um, in international organizations, giving them more voices to have say or to participate in fisheries management plan. So part of that initiatives and creating the small-scale fisheries hub is supporting this for them to capacitate them in terms of responsible seafood sourcing, value addition, enterprise development, the gender equity and social inclusivity integration, and at the same time we support them in building their capacities. For instance, like in crafting their operational manual, their communications plans, and we also providing the venues to amplify their voices. Like we invite them in some of our international forums we have conducted. Some cross-cutting activities of USAID 𝗬𝗂𝗴𝘂𝗍 includes the 𝗬𝗂𝗴𝗆 Seascape Regional, the South China Sea Regional Exchange, or the SCS-REX, which was conducted in January this year. And at the same time, we have conducted the 𝗬𝗂𝗴𝗆 Seascape Regional Exchange, which was conducted in June 2023. We have also conducted the GESI and Fisheries Training of Trainers and Policy Guidance Workshop in September last year. We have also Youth Ambassadors Program. We have 2 cohorts already. We have 2023 and 2024 cohorts. We have, yes, as everyone mentioned, Small-Scale Fisheries Regional Planning Workshop, and at the same time, the South China Sea Regional Technical Exchange in January 2024, and the 𝗬𝗂𝗴𝗆 Seascape Bismarck Solomon Sea Regional Exchange this August 2024, and we are planning to have the SCS-REX 2N in 2025. So thank you very much for your attention. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pedrajas. Mr. Pedrajas has shown us in concrete terms the very small share that our fishers are getting from the blue economy pie right now, which was alluded to by Assistant Secretary Tolentino earlier in her presentation. We can craft interventions and measures at the strategic level, but eventually we have to translate them at the grassroots level and to local communities. And it's heartwarming that civil society organizations are filling the governance gap in this area. But eventually, the government has to step in and take the lead on this issue. So again, thank you so much for all our speakers. Dr. Asanza, Assistant Secretary Tolentino, and Mr. Pedrajas for an invigorating discussion on harnessing our blue economy. We will now have the opportunity to ask our speakers any questions that you may have for our open forum right now. For on-site participants, if you would like to ask a question, you can write your questions down and give it to our organizers who are on standby right now. For our participants in Zoom, you may post your questions in the chat box and then the questions will be forwarded. Ladies and gentlemen, we can now begin our open forum. So I'm reading the first question here that we got. How can we leverage the development of coastal areas to develop and support medium and small, micro, small, and medium enterprises? I think Assistant Secretary Tolentino may be best suited to answer this question.
Thank you. Okay. Hello. Okay, so talking about the MSMEs, we have actually earlier mentioned what are the blue economy enterprises, and we think we really have to support this, especially for the MSMEs. And we have well, basically, I'd like to mention the Department of Trade and Industry would have to play a critical role in this because developing the MSMEs is primarily their mandate. So we have to, at the local level, we have to identify what are these blue economy enterprises, so that would be able to provide them, like in the light of innovation and the technology that we can actually provide to them, so that they'd be able to develop the products that would actually give them the leverage and for them to sustain the initiative that they would be having as an MSME.
Thank
Can
you,
I-
ma'am. Dr. Asanza, please.
Okay, thank you for that particular statement. For a long time now, development plans in the Philippines have been land-based, something like a continental development plan. We have not considered the coastal areas. Well, even the coastal areas are not for the blue economy, as what I have mentioned. So, for example, we need to review what are these, as what Assistant Secretary has said, we need to review which would suit a particular island, because every island in the archipelago would have unique niches, they call it, no? Hindi lahat dapat pare-pareho ang ginagawa. Baka tayo pare-pareho o parang tawag doon, yung pandesal, hot pandesal, MSA and so on. So I think most of our MSMEs are not for the blue economy. Okay? Yeah. And also in line with the development of the coastal areas, we need to have the so-called coastal and marine spatial planning. Okay? So in this particular area, for example, in Catanduanes, which particular MSME would suit the area in terms of the physical as well as the social aspects of that coastal area, of that coastal community. So, hindi to pwede na one size fits all. Okay? Even in the blue economy, we have to consider what to do in the archipelago, in particular islands, because we have the eastern seas, which is the Pacific seaboard. We have the Celebes and the Sulu Seas, the southern board. And then we have the West Philippine Sea and then the northern seas. We have to consider in the planning the strengths and weaknesses, considering the physical as well as the community structure, also the land components of those particular islands. Parang total dapat, hindi yung, ganito ginagawa sa, dapat we do this also. Like, for example, the salt industry, there's a salt industry bill, I think. Ine-import kasi natin ang salt natin for commercial and food industry. 90% of the salt that we need are imported. But we have a lot of coastal areas. So MSMEs can be located wherever they need to be located or where they are suited.
So siguro po parang this is like one town, one product, but for the blue economy.
Yeah, but that product, we need to have consideration of the ecosystem.
Right,
Kasi
of
yung
course.
ang hirap ng product, nakafocus ka sa product. We don't know when nangyayari, dinidevelop mo yung product, nasisira yung ecosystem. Kaya nga, ang mabuti ngayon, we have the ecosystem approach. I was the leader of the Pagtanaw 2050, and we emphasized that. I was the president of the National Academy of Science and Technology when we started and finished Pagtanaw 2050. Okay, it should be interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. Okay? Lahat dapat, hindi yung patsa-patsa. You should see the interconnection and within the archipelago.
So
Thank you.
it's really, from the blue economy perspective, it's really very important to emphasize sustainability. A second question that we gathered, with the increasing aggression in the West Philippine Sea and hearing news of missing fishermen, how can we boost the morale and ensure the protection of our citizens who find their ways of living within the resources of our Philippine waters, as we continue to promote the emergence of blue economy. Perhaps, Mr. Pedras, you can start us off here.
Yeah, ensuring the boosting the morale and ensuring the protection of our citizens, particularly our fishers. We need to support them in, like in our project. We provide them the tools to report the illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing. In this way, they know that. In this way, they were able to document what they observe, what they see at sea, and then through this documentation, we boosting the morale means finding answers to that. For example, finding answers to that report they have provided us, or finding solutions or giving solutions to that report, no, and at the same time securing their social welfare. I mean, many of our small-scale fishers needs alternative livelihood or alternative livelihood aside from fishing. Yeah.
Dr. Asanza, Assistant Secretary Tolentino, would you like to weigh on the question as well?
Let me see. Maybe I should see the components of the question. It's a complex question. So it's increasing aggression and missing fishermen, boosting the morale, protection of our citizens, and of course the living resources being used, and how this would impact the blue economy. So this is a very complex question. No? We have been focusing on the West Philippine Sea. No? Mabuti nga, napukaw din yung blue economy concept in a way. But I think the West Philippine Sea is a complex issue. It's not only socioeconomic, it's a lot of things, diplomatic and so on. And so therefore, it needs that so-called interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary approach. And we have, Dr. Ben Malayang was here, and some of my co-workers were here this morning. And we're coming up with a set of essays on how to approach the problems on the West Philippine Sea. I am writing together with Dr. Espaldon the last part, which is using the human part of it, taking care of the human heritage. It's a common global human heritage that is being destroyed in the process of all these different geopolitical and other things. But I think the Philippines should be stronger in terms of our position that we want to make use of our resources to develop our blue economy.
Thank you, ma'am. Perhaps for our last question, may I have the privilege of asking this? Sorry. I think this is also related, no? How can we? I'd like to connect this to what Dr. Asanza mentioned earlier, that we need to increase our marine protected areas up to 3 times what we have now. But we still have the need to develop our fisheries sector. No? How might we be able to balance that need of establishing more marine protected areas, but at the same time encouraging more fishing to more sustainable fishing to happen in our waters?
Magkasama yun eh. In fact, in many areas wherein you have marine protected areas, they gather more. Kasi value chain assessment. The marine protected areas would educate the community when and how much and where to get the materials. Kasi in a way, the community will be the ones protecting the resource. Kasi hindi ka pwedeng harvest. Okay? So this has been found to be very effective in those 1,000 plus well-managed marine protected areas. Okay, so minsan makikita nyo, ay, ang dami nilang nakukuhang isda for a particular time. Okay, so in the marine protected areas, the community, the fisher folks would know gaano kadalas ang minsan gaano kadalas dapat manghuli at saan manghuhuli at anong size ang huhulihin. Ngayon, siyempre, ang karamihan ng fisher folks, pagkain nila yun. Hindi natin pwede, wag mo na kayo kumuha ng fish ngayon, no? There should be some blue economy industries that would help them in those areas, no? Hindi lang dapat fishing ang kanilang source of income.
Mr. Pedras, in your experience, no, paano nababalanse ng fishermen at their individual level when they're fishing out at sea, yung responsibilities nila to fish sustainably while at the same time provide for their livelihood?
Okay, so
I think one key important in terms of, for example, in implementing programs, like for example, the marine protected areas or in any other fisheries program, it could be highlighted that there should be a stakeholder consultation wherein these groups are consulted what should be implemented and what in that way, I mean, at the same time, you need to assess what are the needs of this group for it to be implemented.
oo, tuloy na.
Assistant Secretary, any final words?
Let me just add to that. No, it's really crucial that we have the stakeholders' commitment. No, so one way of doing that would be to educate them and to provide them the proper information so that they can have sustainable development of the resource. So while they are actually tapping the resources of our oceans, but also engaging in protecting them.
Maraming salamat po. Thank you so much to our speakers for indulging the questions from me and from the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, that is all the time we have right now for the open forum. Thank you so much for all your questions. I'm now going to give the floor to Attorney.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Dr. Asanza, Assistant Secretary Tolentino, Mr. Pedrajas, for your insightful discussions, and Professor Ibarra for your very expert moderation of the third panel. Now, let's all give a warm of applause for our third panel. We would like to invite Undersecretary Madriaga, Undersecretary Domingo, and Alex Sodomaco of Australian Aid to give the tokens of appreciation for our esteemed speakers. And we'd like to invite everyone to participate in a photo opportunity with our third panel. To formally close our program, may I invite Undersecretary Jesus Domingo of the Department of Foreign Affairs to deliver his closing remarks.
Okay. Good afternoon, Undersecretary Madriaga, Undersecretary De Leon, Admiral Alano, our friends from the diplomatic community, particularly our Aussie and our Kiwi brothers and allies, colleagues in government, ladies and gentlemen, magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. I am honored on behalf of the Department of Foreign Affairs and of course representing Undersecretary Enrique Manalo to deliver our closing remarks for this inaugural successful Balangay Forum, Safeguarding Philippine Maritime Interests. And congratulations to the Department of National Defense and our partners, Waypoints, USAID, FNI, and of course the Presidential Office on Maritime Concerns for successfully organizing this forum. Give us all a round of applause. So let me begin by joining all Filipinos in celebrating MANAMo and highlighting our national identity and heritage as a maritime and archipelagic nation. This year's theme is Pamana sa Karagatan para sa kinabukasan ating ingatan. And it is a meaningful reminder of our national commitment to the sustainable development of our seas and oceans so that future generations may continue to benefit from it. It recognizes our waters as a cradle of unparalleled biodiversity and a wellspring of resources vital to our nation and people's livelihood. And it underscores that the health of our marine environment has a wide-reaching impact on the global community of nations. Our inherent duty as stewards of the ocean has long been reflected in our national history, identity, and traditions, and is now carried forward in our actions, policies, and aspirations. We continue to exert every effort to secure our maritime zones and uphold the rights of those who traverse them. In the economic lens, we push for legislation and policy, such as through the Blue Economy Bill, towards the sustainable use of our waters and harnessing of its resources. We are cognizant of the importance of the seas in such global concerns as economic security, safety of shipping, biodiversity, environmental conservation, and climate change. To this end, the Department of Foreign Affairs continues to expand its engagement with states based on unifying interests and advocacies, particularly upholding the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, our UNCLOS, as the Constitution of the Oceans. We have brought to the world stage our calls on the importance of the interconnectedness of the seas, ocean, and the area beyond national jurisdiction, the ABNJ, or the high seas. The Philippines, of course, is a center of biodiversity and adjacent to the pockets of high seas in the region, and these, along with our heritage and status as a maritime and archipelagic state, form the fundamental cornerstones behind our unwavering support for the BBNJ agreement. This third implementing agreement of UNCLOS is a codified reflection of the world's desire to safeguard the health of the oceans. We already strongly affirmed and demonstrated our commitment to marine environmental protection by being one of the first states to sign the BBNJ agreement. With the steadfast support of our esteemed senators, particularly Senator Lauren Legarda, for the swift concurrence to the BBNJ agreement, we look to fulfill soon our aspiration to be among the first dozen state parties to the agreement. Ladies and gentlemen, our maritime domain is still confronted with challenges on several fronts, particularly from those who disregard international law and undermine our country's sovereignty, sovereign rights, and jurisdiction. In the face of these challenges, Philippine policy has been clearly guided by twin anchors, namely UNCLOS and the 2016 Arbitral Award. UNCLOS, with its singular interpretation and character, is a linchpin for a rules-based international order in the Indo-Pacific. It is the constitution of the oceans that provides the governance framework for all activities and concerns in the oceans. It is also the key to ensuring that the West Philippine Sea and the broader South China Sea, critical to international trade and the communities of its coastal nations, are waters of peace, security, and stability. In turn, the Arbitral Award and its finding and binding nature definitively settled the Philippines' maritime entitlements. We are thus fully within our rights to continue with lawful and routine activities in the West Philippine Sea, such as maritime patrols, resupply missions, marine environmental protection efforts within our own maritime zones as allowed under international law. Of these two anchors, His Excellency President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. could not have been more clear with his directive that the country will not lose 1 inch of territory, that we will uphold territorial integrity and sovereignty in accordance with the Constitution and international law, and that we will work with our neighbors to achieve the safety and security of our peoples. Given this directive, the DFA has taken every opportunity to expose the illegal and excessive claims of China. We have consistently and continuously protested the illegal, coercive, and aggressive deceptions against Philippine vessels conducting routine and regular operations in our maritime zones. 2, the damage to our marine environment caused by China's illegal and island building activities and exploitative fishing practices. And 3rd, the harassment and threats to our fishermen and their livelihoods. We will continue to stand firm on the foundation of international law, UNCLOS and the 2016 Arbitration Award. We will continue to categorically reject the excessive claims and aggressive actions by China in the West Philippine Sea as they undermine the rule of law and the very principles that ensure peace and stability in our region. We will continue to uphold and defend the international law of the sea and the rules-based international order that fosters peace and prosperity for all nations. Having said that, we acknowledge the relationship between the Philippines and China is wide-ranging, multifaceted, and goes beyond what happens in the seas. The President himself has emphasized the importance of proper diplomatic approaches and the need for peaceful settlement of disputes. As such, we remain proactive in our engagements with China, continue to keep channels of communication open, sustain dialogue at various levels, and always seek an atmosphere conducive to sincere and meaningful discussions. The Philippines is sincere, frank, and candid in these exchanges, while also being firm and unequivocal about the national position and the need to uphold international law. We also continue to work with China and other ASEAN member states for the conclusion of an effective and substantive code of conduct in the South China Sea. This means that the COC must uphold UNCLOS and the 2016 award and should not carve out a new regime from UNCLOS or afford any party rights not consistent with UNCLOS. We remain vigilant that the COC will not exclude the interests and rights of third parties. Finally, since a conducive environment is crucial for the success of the negotiations, we insist that the COC negotiations both reflect and influence the situation of the waters. Part of building stronger partnerships is the effort to reach out to other ASEAN member states, both in the context of the Code of Conduct negotiations and directly through bilateral engagements. We actively cooperate with our ASEAN neighbors, seeking common ground on issues of mutual interest, like promoting the blue economy, sustainable fishing practices, and environmental protection. But the strongest partnerships in the maritime domain has been found with our engagement with our allies and partners, and other like-minded countries who believe in the same universal principles and share our commitment to an open and inclusive rules-based international order anchored on international law. We have done this through different political consultative mechanisms, including through the platform of maritime dialogues established with meaningful partners, including the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, Japan, Republic of Korea, Vietnam, Indonesia, India, and the European Union. These broadening ties with traditional security partners and non-traditional ones have yielded a significant increase in practical engagements. For instance, we have concluded numerous multilateral cooperative activities and multilateral initiatives such as the Philippines, Japan, USA Trilateral, and the Philippines, Australia, Japan, USA Squad. We look to operationalize the gains for our country's security interests. These activities show that the Philippines does not stand alone and is a reliable partner with full agency to ensure that an open and inclusive rules-based international order is in place in the Indo-Pacific, where peace and stability and prosperity reign. Of course, I must also make mention of the country which I had the honor or privilege serving, Philippine Ambassador Aotearoa, New Zealand. Our views on maritime security are guided by the lens that economic security and territorial integrity are deeply interconnected. Our people can only fully enjoy the resources of the country, including the fisheries in the EEZ and the resources in the seabed, if our vessels are not harassed, if the coral reefs that serve as nurseries for the fisheries are not destroyed, and if our fisher folk are not chased away from their fishing grounds. Particularly as regards fisheries and environmental protection, we find many like-minded countries, including developing island states, that feel the full effects of irresponsible actions of larger neighbors. We are keen to find convergence with these countries on issues like sustainable fishing practices, safe shipping routes, climate action, and environmental protection. And again, I was privileged to be at the forefront as concurrent as my being ambassador to New Zealand. I was also ambassador to the Pacific Island nations, Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, Cook Islands, and the Pacific Island Forum. We have strived to build partnerships with states that share this principled commitment to UNCLOS and the arbitral award's positive contribution to international law and the dispute settlement mechanism therein. Earlier this year, the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea issued its advisory opinion on climate change as requested by the Commission on Small Island States, or COSIS. In these proceedings, 31 states or group of states mentioned the 2016 award as an authority in international law, especially in underscoring the duty of states to protect and preserve the marine environment. Clearly, the ITLOS advisory opinion proves that the 2016 arbitral award is an unassailable part of the corpus of international law. This is important as it demonstrates that the issues we face in the WPS, and by extension the determinations of the 2016 arbitral award, do not only affect the region but the global community of nations in a spectrum of issues. It is a demonstration that the award is a positive contribution to and is a legitimate source of the understanding and effective implementation of international environmental law and can pave the way for stronger international cooperation in addressing climate change and protecting our shared ocean. Our commitment to the global engagement is also demonstrated in our active participation in ocean governance proceedings such as the IMO, and our active push for the inclusion of Filipino experts in UNCLOS bodies such as the Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf and the International Seabed Authority. And domestically, we have also strengthened our national legal framework and put our archipelagic house in order. With the Maritime Zones Bill and Archipelagic Sea Lanes Bill, as well as the Blue Economy Bill, our domestic laws will be in further alignment in the international law. Don't worry, this is now my last page. Ladies and gentlemen, we must ensure that every Filipino understands the importance of our waters for the growth and the development of the Philippines, of this generation and the ones to come. I express my sincere thanks for the opportunity to share these significant matters with you. We join all of our partner agencies and organizations in the pursuit of our nation's highest goals and are grateful for your indispensable work in operationalizing our national policy and standing as the vanguards of our country's sovereignty. And I reiterate our utmost appreciation to deepening engagement with our allies and partners in the maritime domain. We can assure you that the Department of Foreign Affairs will steadfastly remain committed to the protection of our waters, our people, and our home. We wish to see the West Philippine Sea and the wider Indo-Pacific as a stable, peaceful, and prosperous region and a beacon to the entire world as to what is possible with cooperation, dialogue, and faithful adherence to the rule of law. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Undersecretary Domingo. You said a mouthful, but that was a very comprehensive closing remark. And now, may we request on stage Undersecretary Madriaga and Mr. Sodomako from the Australian Embassy to present tokens of appreciation to our Undersecretary Domingo. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for everyone, especially who stayed until the end of this forum. I feel like you need or deserve at least a certificate, like an MCLE certificate, specializing in maritime security. And that wraps up the inaugural Balangay Forum, Safeguarding Philippine Maritime Interests. On behalf of the Department of National Defense, the Presidential Office for Maritime Concerns, the Foundation for the National Interests, and the Waypoints Project, we warmly thank our speakers and participants for engaging in such a fruitful discussion. And before we go our separate ways, may we request our participants to take a minute of their time to answer our post-event evaluation form in the attached link seen in the chat box, or you can scan the QR code. Thank you for joining us, and happy MANAMo.